So today we're going to be looking at the astrology chart of Meghan Markle in terms of her relationship with her mother, Doria Ragland. Now, I got interested in this when I was reading a little bit of Meghan Markle's bio, and I found out that the relationship, with her mother and her father, well, allegedly, it's been kind of a complicated situation where apparently she was mostly raised by her father during her formative years. And then later on, there was this falling out that occurred around the time or maybe before. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got married, and then Doria came back into the picture, supportive of the marriage and supportive of the relationship. So I'm going to look at this in the astrology chart. Now, usually what we would be looking at is the moon, and we'll be looking at the fourth house and even things like the fourth lord when we're looking at this astrology chart. So for those of you that are interested in sticking around and learning about that, please do so. And if you're new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. I do practice Vedic sidereal astrology, which is astrology from ancient India. This is my interpretation, of course, though I'm not extremely orthodox about all of it. And also, if you're interested in a personal private reading, those are down below. I do Calendly bookings where you can do a Zoom reading with me, or even recorded audio readings. Those are booked through email. You can just email me on those. And when you purchase those readings, it supports what I do. This reading's for entertainment purposes only. All these statements about Meghan Markle or Doria Ragland, these are all my opinion and interpretation of the astrological energies. So let's take a look at the astrology chart of Meghan Markle. Like I said, what we're going to look at a few factors in the astrology chart. Let me pull up the astrology chart here. She's Cancer ascendant, like a lot of the royals are actually. And so the first thing we're always going to look at when we're looking at mother in an astrology chart, we're going to look at moon. So moon is going to be the karaka of mother nurturing energies. The other thing to consider about moon is it is the first lord. So, Meghan Markle herself may have a lot of qualities of her mother because, for example, the mother, when moon is in the third house, might be somebody that's very chatty, very talkative, very conversational. They like to message people a lot. Well, Meghan Markle may have a lot of those qualities because moon is the first lord. It rules the first house. So it has a lot to do with how she thinks and how she behaves. So they may have some similar qualities in some of these respects. So a talkative mother, a chatty mother, it's usually a good thing to have moon in the third house because it can show that, you might have an ongoing relationship. There might be a lot of communication, messaging between the native and their mother. However, there's some complicated factors in this chart too, and that's what we're going to explore right now. You'll notice that moon, it's next to Saturn here, and it's next to Jupiter over here. And we got to remember that moon is an impressionable planet. Moon, like essentially when we look at the moon during a full moon, it's reflecting the light of the sun. Well, that's how the moon behaves often. It reflects the light of the planets that are next to it. So it takes on a lot of qualities of the planets in the same sign. So, for example, in Meghan's chart, moon is going to be taking on the qualities of Saturn. Moon's going to be taking on the qualities of Jupiter. And so there's a few factors there. Now, this isn't entirely bad. I mean, Saturn is a difficult energy to deal with, and we'll unwrap that. But let's let's talk about Jupiter. Now, Jupiter could show that the mother may have passed on a lot of her values. Like from what I understand in the bio I read, Meghan's mother was into different spiritual programs. Like, for example, I think she was following the teachings of Yogananda. And so, that would be this whole ninth lord situation over here, ninth house. And that would be Jupiter. So Jupiter's the ninth lord. And then Jupiter's also the sixth lord, though. And that's where the difficult aspects can come in. So the sixth house is complicated. So there's this teacher energy there, but sixth house can kind of spoil a lot of the energy. Now, the sixth house represents a few different things. So if it's kind of it's influence in the moon with these qualities, it could be difficult. So for example, the sixth house can represent health issues. The sixth house can represent jealousy, can represent envy. The sixth house can represent conflicted energy, somebody who's very conflicted and conflictual. The sixth house can represent addictions. So it can represent all those kind of negative things in life that are adversarial. In fact, the sixth house can represent somebody that's adversarial to our interest. So there's definitely some difficult energies there. The other thing to point out is we have Saturn there in the next to Moon in the third house of Virgo. And Saturn, it's the eighth lord and the seventh lord there. So let's talk about Saturn first of all. Saturn can be a very dense energy, a very survival oriented energy, a very pessimistic energy. So those qualities could be rubbing off on the mother. The mother may be perceived to be, a little bit pessimistic, negative, just because Saturn has that really dense energy. It's like I said, it rules the lower three chakras. I said that in some of my other videos. So it has survival energy, fear energy. It could be a mother that has a somewhat fearful, and it could be very subconscious, by the way. It's not like somebody that's walking around with fear, but when somebody, has a lot of fear in their life, they could come off as really harsh. So Saturn's definitely an issue there. And then Saturn next to mother can show that this is going to be one of those karmic relationships that just present obstacle after obstacle in Meghan's life. So even though maybe maybe the relationship is okay at the moment, Saturn's going to show there's always going to be some sort of thorn in the relationship. There's always going to be some sort of issue. And a lot of times the Saturn karma is learning how to face the issue with some sort of neutrality, kind of accepting it for what it is. Maybe she's done that to a certain extent, but there's always going to be something there with Saturn. It's never completely erased. There's always a little bit of a negative connotation there with Saturn. Now, the fact that the Saturn rules the eighth house could show, for example, it could show a mother that's actually has some psychic abilities, healing abilities. That would be the positive end. But it also could show a mother that's quite secretive. So a mother that maybe have a lot of secrets, keeps a lot of secrets, a little bit mysterious. So there might be a lot of things that Meghan doesn't know about her mother. There's some sort of mysterious element there. There's some secrets about her past, maybe about the past associations, especially past associations, because Saturn rules the seventh house. So past associations, there may be some mystery there. She doesn't entirely know 100% of the story, or maybe she might think she does, but she actually doesn't, according to the astrology chart. Okay, so that's some difficult energies to be facing. Saturn, we got the sixth lord. It's definitely we got two malefics. We got the sixth, eighth house, and the sixth house both activated, next to moon. This is a difficulty. And by the way, since the moon represents the emotional and the astral body of Meghan, it could show difficulty there. So, for example, Saturn in the third house could show somebody that might be prone to negative thinking and pessimism. Like Meghan herself could be prone to those things. Now, the other harsh aspect I see in this astrology chart is we have Mars over here, and it's aspecting the third house of Virgo. So that aspect there. Now Mars, it's not a bad planet for Cancer ascendant, but Mars, it does form Kuja dosha in this chart, with its aspect to the seventh house. But the Mars energy can show conflicted energy, argumentative energy, restless energy. All that's just kind of adding to all of this frustration here. And especially when we get Mars and Saturn, this Mars energy and Saturn energy, that's a classic combination of repressed anger, frustration, passive aggressiveness. There could be a lot of difficulty with that placement with Mars and Saturn together. Now, I do want to point out with the sixth lord and the eighth lord both being in the third house next to moon, there's a certain quality of deceptiveness about this situation that I want to add. So this could represent like a deceptive, it could be a somewhat there's deception in the relationship. So I don't want to point fingers on that, but there's definitely this idea of deception, jealousy, envy that could be flavoring the relationship a little bit. It's just it's somewhat, you can't get around that. The sixth house and the eighth house, you just can't get around that idea of like secrets, envy, all those kind of things. Very difficult. And then you got the anger there, which is the Mars in the 12th house. The other thing to point out is it's in the sign of Virgo. So Moon being in the sign of Virgo and then all these other planets, it could show a mother that was very critical of Meghan, very critical, maybe kind of a Poindexter, maybe someone that always points out flaws. And what this does is this can obviously influence the behavior of Meghan later on in her life, where maybe she has that vulnerability there, that vulnerability to criticism. And so that's some difficulty there. A lot of people speculate that that might have been one of the issues with the royal family, is maybe she couldn't handle like the protocols, or maybe she perceived it as critical even though it wasn't necessarily critical, but maybe she's very sensitive. Anybody that has Saturn in the sign of Virgo is going to be someone that's sensitive to criticism usually, and especially with Moon being there. So that's something to point out. Now, the relationship isn't entirely bad, even though it does got a lot of issues with it. So the fourth house, the one thing I do want to point out with the fourth house is there's no negative aspects happening on it. So the fourth house, Saturn's not aspecting it, Mars is not aspecting it, Rahu's not aspecting it. So the fourth house, there's no planets there. So that's kind of like, that adds to this energy of there is some enjoyment in the relationship. It isn't just total bad, but the relationship is a mixed bag. And if we look at the fourth lord, which is Venus, that's in the second house of Leo. Okay. So there's a few things here, and let's really break that down. The Venus and Leo. So Venus in the second house is not really bad. It could show a mother that's remember, I'm backing up for a second. This is the fourth lord. So why am I focused on Venus? Because it rules the fourth house. So remember, the Lord is also important when we look in Vedic astrology. So Venus in the second house could show, for example, a mother that may have a good voice, because second house rules voice. A mother that a lot of the values may have come from the mother. A lot of, even if you were to argue, well, she was raised by her father, well, some of the values from the mother still were able to seep into Meghan's values based on the astrology chart. Mother could have a good voice. Mother could be a good storyteller with Venus being in the second house. Mother could be very concerned about historical values, family legacy, those kind of things with Venus in the second house. That's not necessarily bad. So those are kind of neutral. One of the things I will point out is, but it's in the sign of Leo, and Venus doesn't really do that great in the sign of Leo. And Venus is also, by the way, debilitated in the Navamsa chart. So Venus is it does have some difficulty there. With Venus in the sign of Leo, what I wanted to talk about is it could show a mother that wants to be in the spotlight somehow. A mother that wants to be seen, a mother that wants to be in the spotlight, because Leo is kind of being on center stage, being recognized. So it might be the mother wants to kind of be the center of the orbit in some ways, or take some of that light with Venus being in the sign Leo, but it's not entirely bad. As we've seen with some of the factors in the astrology chart, the relationship, it's quite complicated, and it's a difficult relationship, especially with Saturn there and the Mars aspect. When I was looking at the astrology chart, I was just very curious because I had read the stories about the relationship. We might do another video on Meghan's relationship with her father, because they had that falling out. So if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in me looking at some of the other relationships with like the royal families and other family members, please comment down below which chart you would like me to look at. And just comment whatever you think. So thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next video.